Okay, so in this video, I'm going to be going through a few Harry Potter lines and quotes and scenes in the books that have to be included in the TV show. And when I say included, sometimes it will be, the actor saying it verbally, and sometimes it will be down to more their acting ability to portray it non-verbally. And maybe at times it'll be up to the directors and producers and whatnot to sort of set the scene and literally let all of us book readers know that it is related to a certain part of the book or a certain line in the book. Obviously, this is not going to be an exhaustive list. There's just way too much for that. But I'm going to treat each book as its own separate season. So we're going to go through 7 seasons and we're going to go through quotes that just have to be in there. Before I get into it, don't forget to like and subscribe and consider becoming a patron also. So let's start up. Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, or Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone for the Americans out there. Here's what we got up first. Mainly to avoid all the staring eyes, Harry looked upwards and saw a velvety black ceiling dotted with stars. He heard Hermione whisper, "It's bewitched to look like the sky outside. I read about it in Hogwarts history." It was hard to believe that there was a ceiling at all, and that the Great Hall didn't simply open onto the heavens. This is one of my favorite quotes out of the whole series. And to be honest, this kind of quote really sort of sums up the magical nature of book one. And season one really has to do a bang up job of just getting everyone to fall in love with magic again. So I know in fantasy, especially sort of outside of Harry Potter, it's all about soft magic systems versus hard magic systems, etc., etc. But I've said this once and I'll say it before, no other fantasy book has actually read as magical as Harry Potter, like nowhere near. Everyone either has like soft magic systems, hard magic systems, but none of them are actually magical, if you know what I'm saying. Like the sort of enchanted, good feeling sort of nature you get with Harry Potter. So this line, especially with the actors at the time, will be, kids. We got to see the wonder of the world through their eyes. And so this is gonna be an important scene, and Hermione and Harry are gonna have to execute it well. And obviously how they sort of set up the Great Hall and how it's designed is going to play an important role. But next up, wonder what it's like to live a peaceful life. Ron sighed. To be honest, I want this at the end. If the first sort of quote would probably be in the first episode or two. This I actually want it to be right at the end because I know it is towards the end of the book as well. But I really want it to be at the end because it will literally foreshadow and it'll be a crazy callback to literally the rest of the season, rest of the series, I should say, rest of the series, because as you know, they don't live a peaceful life. We all know it, and so even if whether you've watched the films or you've read the books or both, like I have, they do not live anything remotely close to a peaceful life, and so that quote is going to be hilarious. I don't think it actually gets brought up enough in terms of on the literature sense, and I don't think it was included in the films. And if it was, my memory might be not serving me well. If it was, it's not really brought up at all. But anyway, that's the first season, Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. Just wanted to do two for them. Let's go to the Chamber of Secrets, season 2. First up, what Harry found most unusual about life at Ron's, however, wasn't the talking mirror or the clanking ghoul. It was the fact that everybody there seemed to like him. This is going to be an interesting one to portray because it's all about Harry's. One, it could be an inner monologue. I doubt they will do that, but it could be. But secondly, and I think this is what they will have to do. It will kind of have to be, when you have a scene where you have an actor who, for whatever reason, is sort of grateful. Like it could be busy, things could be going on, and then you got the actor and they're sort of still and they're looking at something or someone, and they're grateful for that person, and you see them smile a bit. I think it will have to be like that. If you guys have watched Skins, and you should have all have watched Skins by now, there is, JJ. I think he's person with autism on the show. JJ, great character. I forgot. I think this is either season generation 2 or 3. I think this happens in where you got Effie and Cook and all those guys. In that scene, after he loses his virginity, he's downstairs with the girl, one of the twins, and obviously because of his autism, his obviously his mom's worried about him, how he socializes, if he makes friends, etc., etc. So when he's actually come down with a friend who's a girl in this case, and they're having breakfast, and JJ and the girl, I forgot the girl's name, I forgot the twins' name, when they're talking and whatnot, she looks at them and she smiles, and it's a beautiful smile, and it was very noteworthy because she was probably the best parent throughout all the parents that appear on Skins. So it'll be kind of like that. It'll be kind of like that. But the second one, for the Chamber of Secrets, he takes it apart, puts spells on it, and puts it back together again. If he raided our house, he'd have to put himself straight under arrest. I remember this is Ron talking about Arthur Weasley and what he does as a hobby, tinkering with Muggle items. And I think this is going to be a great thing to include because at that moment, this is the first, Chamber of Secrets, the first time that Harry's in a wizarding home. And so showing him around, I think this is going to be an absolutely important scene to really expand the wizarding world and seeing actually maybe in depth what Arthur does and what other items he sort of tinkers with and what they can do. We get the flying car, the legendary flying car that's on the front cover of the book and, plays a significant role in the movie. But I'd also like to see other things that he actually tinkers with and what they can do once he was done with them. I think that would be very, very cool. So that's an important quote. And I think that Ron showing Harry around, sort of getting him used to life in the Burrow as well, would be, and also obviously, an important scene in itself. But season 3 now, Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban. This is my second favorite book in the series, I believe, or third favorite. It is an absolute juggernaut of a book. The film absolutely slaps. Everyone loves this film. It signifies a significant turning point, and I think the TV series has got one hell of a job following in Alfonso. I forgot the director's name. I know his first name is Alfonso. Following in his footsteps to really set the sort of darker tone of sort of visual life of the world. So let's get into the quotes for this. I thought we'd seen the worst when we bought the 200 copies of the Invisible Book of Invisibility. Cost a fortune, and we never found them. This quote is part of, and I think this has to be in the TV show. I did a video recently where I talked about my favorite fantasy books or 5-star fantasy books, and obviously Prisoner of Azkaban was in there. And I got a comment from a viewer saying, will we ever know what your favorite Harry Potter moment is? And I think I'm going to say it. I love the mundane. So in Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban, after Harry blows up his aunt and he's housed in a room by the Ministry, that part afterwards where he sort of like explores Diagon Alley by himself and he does book shopping and he does his homework and he does other just mundane things. He goes out to cafes and he just reads the newspaper. That page and a half, 2-3 pages in the book, towards the beginning of the book, is my favorite part in the whole book series. I loved it. It was so mundane. It was so beautiful to just see Harry just do ordinary stuff, and that's why I absolutely loved it. I thought it was executed perfectly. Some people might overlook it, but also that quote is within that sort of section where Harry's literally doing, he's shopping for Hogwarts. And, I think he's in Burks and Burgess. I think he was in Burks and Burgess. And he was buying his book. And so, again, I love the quote from the shopkeeper saying that, because that's hilarious and also expands the wizarding world and the magical world a lot too. And then, obviously, the scene's just epic. But anyway, on to the second one. "Oh yes, Professor Head," said Peeves, with the air of one cradling a large bombshell in his arms. He got very angry when she wouldn't let him in, you see. Peeves slipped over and grinned at Dumbledore from between his own legs. "Nasty temper he's got. that Sirius Black. The fact Peeves has to be in the TV show. Like, there's no excuse for Peeves not to be in a TV show. And he has to be an absolute menace to society. And I think it's going to be hilarious. But that quote and that scene between him and Dumbledore is going to be epic, because obviously at that time everything's in disarray. Where's the fat lady, etc., etc.? There's all sorts of commotions on the stairway, and Peeves dropping that plot twist that, yeah, Sirius Black's in the building. Like, I don't know what to tell you. It is what it is. Good luck. Like, him dropping that bombshell is going to be absolutely nuts. So that line, 100%, that quote has to be in the TV show. 1000%. No arguments about it. Anyway, moving on. Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. This is technically, in terms of my rating, I rated the highest. It's the highest rated book I gave in the series. It is fantastic. I think it's the best book in the series. It is an absolute chunker. I respect it. And so let's go with season 4 and let's see the first quote that has to be included in the TV show. Mrs. Weasley set the potion down on the bedside cabinet, bent down and put her arms around Harry. He had no memory of ever being hugged like this, as though by a mother. That was a heartbreaking one when I read that. It was so poignant, so beautiful, so elegantly done. And again, at this point, 4 books in, 4 seasons in, Mrs. Weasley will feel comfortable doing that, and Harry will feel comfortable receiving that from Mrs. Weasley. They have a beautiful relationship. I love that she took him on just as another son, and I actually love just the whole dynamic between Harry Potter and the Weasleys. Is just beautiful. It's kind of like with Sirius Black and the Potters, I think, as well. And Sirius touches on that in season 5, and we should also get that in season 5. I don't have it on my on my list here, but that scene and Sirius saying that in the films, and I think he said it in the books also, 100% needs to be in the TV show. But next up, what a day. Could we have asked for more perfect weather? A cloudless night coming, and hardly a hiccup in the arrangements. Not much for me to do. Behind him, a group of haggard-looking ministry wizards rushed past, pointing at the distant evidence of some sort of magical fire, which was sending violet sparks 20 feet into the air. Bagman, I believe, if I recall his name correctly, he needs a 100% much more prominent role in the TV series than he got in the films. 1000%. I think up to besides Lucius Malfoy, we haven't really seen another sort of slimy wizard, especially one as powerful and as famous and as in a powerful position as Bagman. We haven't seen it, and I think it's going to be great if they do this right. Bagman, Monagus Fletcher, Lucius Malfoy, even Filch. I think those 4 sort of slimy characters will just be absolutely perfect. Even Umbridge as well, but Umbridge is legendary in her own right. But again, those castings have to be exquisite, and the actors just have to basically just act their arse off with it. But yeah, that's an epic scene, and again, the way that sets out in the Quidditch World Cup, everything's going crazy. Everyone, been to a sports event. Everyone's packed in, everyone's sort of feeling the hype, the atmosphere of the upcoming event. And so the scene's going to be fantastic, right? And then obviously you got Bagman like, yeah, everything's fine. And then just have everything in the background falling apart. I actually don't think it should be just, violet sparks. I think there should be fights breaking out because, when you do go to sporting events, there are fights between rival fans. I think a fight should break out, maybe a duel. Then obviously you got another madness, just everything. Because remember, they're trying to keep this low key from the Muggles while being just out in the open. So I think that we should have all sorts of madness going on, and then all sorts of ministry people that maybe are in like high-vis jackets, something to tell them apart. And they're just scrambling everywhere to try and like stop everything before, it becomes too evident to like any onlooking muggles that this isn't normal at all. So yeah, I think that's how this they really need to go ham in this scene. They need to go off. It needs to be a full on spectacle. I swear to God, it has to be. And I think it'll be good. And I think Bagman just being there, kicking his feet up, leaning against a tree trunk, like yeah, everything's good. Maybe smoking a cigar, something like that. You know that kind of type. So yeah, that's gonna be a fun scene for sure. The Quidditch World Cup scene is gonna be absolutely epic as well. They've got to do that right. Unlike don't skip it, don't skip it at all. Because also as well with the events that take place, there's a lot of vital information that happens, and again we see different wizarding people and wizarding creatures also, and explanation as to like what they are, like the Velas. So we expand again the magic and the wizarding world. So it's got to be done correctly. They've got to go all in on that, and they got to put aside a very generous budget to do all of it too. And HBO better not like skim on it neither. So all right, moving on to season 5, which is The Order of the Phoenix. This is my favorite book in the series personally. And so season 5 is going to be crazy. I cannot wait to how they're going to execute this, because in the films they missed out a lot. And even in The Goblet of Fire, again the mystery with is it Tinky, Pinky, Winky, the house elf, and Barty Crouch and Barty Crouch Jr. That's all got to be included. But anyway, first quote for Order of the Phoenix season 5. A group of golden statues, larger than life size, stood in the middle of a circular pool. Tallest of them was a noble-looking wizard, with his wand pointing straight up in the air. Grouped around him were a beautiful witch, a centaur, a goblin, and a house elf. The last 3 were all looking adoringly up at the witch and wizard. For those who don't know, those who did not realize yet, that quote that I just read is literally what's on the back of the book of Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix. And I think we do get some sort of statue when we are in the ministry. I think maybe in the 5th book as well we do kind of get it, but it's more just in the background while you have like the sort of the panoramic shot, I guess, of the lobby of the ministry. But I think they need to really zoom in on this and really sort of have Harry sort of like looking up at this statue, which again is larger than life, and see it, and him notice the house elf, notice the goblin, notice the centaur, notice the witch, then notice the wizard. I think again just to really embed class structures even more, and we do get a lot about class structure. I mean, we sort of talk about pure bloods and half bloods and quote unquote mud bloods, and the Weasleys versus the Malfoys and all that good stuff, and even Harry himself. But I think as well, outside of that, seeing it literally bang in the middle of the Ministry of Magic, that hierarchy 100% needs to be included. And again, they will have the time to do this. It's a whole season, and maybe because I think Arthur and Harry are going to his hearing at this point, Arthur can maybe explain a bit more, add a bit more context, talk a bit more about the history of wizards, and maybe about how we enslaved the house elves, how the wizards, how the wizards, I always see myself as a wizard, so how the wizards enslaved house elves, how the wizards fought against goblins. Because remember, we talk about the goblin wizard sort of tiff and fights a little bit later on in the books. I think maybe purely in the last one it gets brought up a lot. But yeah, I think, and obviously the centaurs, they talked about it. I think it was the first book, and in the first film or the second one, where we're in the Forbidden Forest, and they mention it also. And I think Hagrid touches on it as well. But that needs to be talked about more. And I think even then, in those earlier seasons and in those earlier books, they should go and talk about it a lot more. And I think that it will be great. Again, it adds, it kind of is very relevant to how class structures are today. And I think that parallel will be great. And again, it just adds a lot more texture to the story. and really sort of like solidifies the world building a lot more too. Those are enchanted windows. Magical maintenance decide what weather we'll get every day. We had 2 months of hurricanes last time. They were angling for a pay rise. I love this quote and I think it should be included in there. And I think that we should really pause and again have Arthur explain more about the history of things, because this sounds like the maintenance team are unionized and this was some sort of like collective action because they weren't getting paid enough. And I do like that as well. I think that would be an interesting thing to add, because again, we don't dive deep at all into how really the economy works and how much people get paid for whatnot. And you know, this world is magical and it's beautiful. We don't really need to. But again, just those kind of sort of surface level touches here and there that, you know, again, are relevant to the real world will be absolutely fantastic. So that has to be included. Ron finishing his transfiguration essay with many snorts of impatience and crossing out. Hermione writing steadily to the very end of the parchment, and Harry staring into the fire, wishing more than anything that Sirius's head would appear there and give him some advice about girls. I did tell you guys I like the mundane, right? Because this has to be included in there. I loved reading about this because again, this is just normal student life. You know, you're just trying to work things out in your head. You're trying to do actual work itself. This has to be included in there. I think it would be an absolutely great scene. Amazing how much difficult it was to extend his arm 12 inches and touch her hand than it was to snatch a speeding snitch from midair. I think Goblet of Fire, Order of the Phoenix, and even Half-Blood Prince, the romance is dialed all the way up, and I respect it because we get into that age, and I won't lie, they do need to sort of rectify Cho Chang's character. They did her a big disservice in the films. So seeing her relationship with Harry and actually getting that in a bit more detail as well, I think will be absolutely great. So I'm really looking forward to that. It's got to be in there. So it's going to be a lot of fun. So yeah. All right, on to season 6, Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince. This used to be, when I reread the books in 2020, this was my favorite. But then when I reread it, I guess, was it 2024, last year, it dropped down the rankings, but I still really like this book, of course. But the TV show's got to avoid the pitfalls of the films, because the films left out so much. And I think that's why people rate this film as like the worst film, like especially in terms of adaptation and how accurate it is, because they fumbled the bag. It was an absolute disgrace, like the film they put out compared to how great the book is. So yeah, anyway, first up, you see, we have never been able to keep a defense against the dark arts teacher for longer than a year, since I refused to post to Lord Voldemort. This reveal by Dumbledore is going to be very significant. And I think it's going to be up to, you know, the showrunner, how they're going to really drop this in there and make it seem like, oh damn, it makes sense, and have everything click. But it'll be interesting to see. I think this definitely has to be in there because the defense against the dark arts role, and it being such a revolving door of people, is, you know, is a running theme, a running joke, you know, a running issue throughout the whole series, I should say. He caught a sudden whiff of the flowery smell he had picked up in Slughorn's dungeon. He looked around and saw that Ginny had joined them. Again, Ginny and Harry's relationship has to be done. That's another thing that needs to be greatly rectified. All the romances need to be greatly rectified in the TV series, to be fair. Every single one of them. They just need to be added to more. I guess, you know, I know in the books we don't get, you know, that much information, and we don't have that much sort of source material to go off. So it's going to be important for the writers, the HBO writers, to add significant and relevant sort of moments to people's relationships, because Harry and Ginny's it's a significant one, and it's got to be done. Anyway, last quote for season 6. But for heaven's sake, you're wizards. You can do magic. Surely you can sort out, well, anything. Scrimgore turned slowly on the spot. The trouble is, the other side can do magic too, Prime Minister. Again, I should have put this quote first. This needs the whole scene with the Prime Minister and Fudge and Scrimgeour needs to 100% be in here, and it needs to be significant. They need to do it crazy, crazy justice. I was so mad that they left this out. Again, there's a reason why this film, in terms of the adaptation quality, is rated the lowest amongst Harry Potter fans, because they absolutely fumbled this, and they fumbled it badly. I cannot believe they left this out. It absolutely joke that they left it out. So it's got to be in there, and it's going to be epic. It's going to be great. On to the last season, and even though everything's action packed for the second half at least, there's one quote. I only have one quote for season 7, and even though we get it in the films, I think we need the sort of crescendo around this quote to be done properly. And that quote is, "The ministry has fallen. Scrimgeour is dead. They are coming." The warning. This is what officially marks the dystopian nature of Death Eater's rule, Lord Voldemort's rule. This is officially it. Society's done now. We're now in a post-apocalyptic setting. This is your warning, and Kingsley delivers it well in time. And I think there needs to be a lot more chaos around it. I think a lot of the duels that when the Death Eaters come and they run up in Bill and Fleur's wedding, it needs to be a lot more. I want it to be like an actual proper duel with actual proper fights. Everyone, and I guess in the Half-Blood Prince, I remember reading that I guess the decision makers decided not to include the battle scene at Hogwarts, the sort of mini battle scene after Harry had given his friends Felix luck, because there was the big war battle scene coming on in the last film, but it was stupid to not include it, because you had a significant battle scene in the Goblet of Fire. You had a significant battle scene in the Order of the Phoenix. We should have got one for the Half-Blood Prince. And then you had the gap with part 1 where really nothing happens. Then you get the big war scene. So they definitely fumbled that. And I think that they should not shy away from showing the magical abilities of everyone else outside of Dumbledore and Voldemort. Like, you can tell Kingsley's really about it. Lupin's really about it. I want to see what Fred and George are like in duels as well, especially given how much of a jokesters they are, or sort of weird, unethical tricks that they maybe get up to. I really want to see them land this scene, have this quote, and then just have madness going on. And so it'll be interesting to see. But anyway, guys, like I said, this isn't an exhaustive list, and I've gone on long enough now. They need to add a ton more, and they've got to execute this, and it's got to be done right. And I'm just hopeful that they will. Anyway, let us know what you guys think should be included in the Harry Potter TV series. Again, don't forget to like, subscribe, and consider becoming a Patreon. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening.